Hudson Hawk is a 1991 American action comedy film directed by Michael Lemmon, starring Bruce Willis, Danny Aiello, Andie MacDowell, Richard E. Grant, Sandra Bernhard, and more.
Hudson Hawk does have some funny lines from Bruce Willis, but this project was ill-conceived, I think, right at the script level.
It was. In fact, it's unbelievable that anyone could have read the script of this movie and thought that it could be produced as a successful film, because every single line starts from zero and gets to nowhere. It's one of these movies where there's no way for the audience to get involved because everything is arbitrary. The speech we just heard by James Coburn, I don't know what that was about. I don't know what it meant, and I don't know why it was supposed to be funny.
You know what kind of a style they're going for. They're trying to do the Hope and Crosby routine. They're trying to do a little bit of Abbott and Costello, and they're trying to bring in all these kinds of things, and it's too much. It just doesn't work at all.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and once again, I'm joined by my co-host from the Film Mulligans podcast, Mr. Jason E. Alt. Thanks for coming back, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, you know what? Who else was going to talk about Hudson Hawk? You've brought this one up for a while.
This movie is...
What happened?
Good, actually.
Okay. All right, let's just jump right into it. Why are we talking about Hudson Hawk, Jason?
Because this is a cult film show, and this is a cult film.
Okay.
Hudson Hawk is an action comedy starring Bruce Willis at his peak, and it confused everyone. Nobody knew what this movie wanted to be, and nobody was willing to just let this movie be this movie.
Okay.
So at the time, critics really did not like this movie. It hasn't really resonated with like the general audience, and it won the Razzie for worst film in 1991. You know, this movie has a lot of strikes against it, but you watch it and you're like, oh, this movie is delightful. It's Bruce Willis at his comedic peak. And Bruce Willis was a guy that they did not want to cast for Die Hard. They wanted someone else. They didn't, it was the sequel to a movie where the character was originally played by Frank Sinatra. So, like, Bruce Willis doesn't seem like the same guy to play the character John McClane that was played by Frank Sinatra. Bruce Willis was like an unlikely action hero, but he's sort of, he was, the first thing he did was moonlighting, was a comedy series with Sybil Shepherd. Like, he wasn't originally an action star. So he's always wanted to... Well, he's wanted to play shitty harmonica music, I guess, but like one of the things he's wanted to do was comedy. That's where he got his start, and he makes a million wisecracking jokes in this movie. He sings, he dances, he gets his crotch gnawed on by a dog. It's the movie has something for everyone, and it's got Andie MacDowell in her prime,
right?
Which is very visually appealing. Danny Aiello is the perfect sidekick for an action comedy, which you wouldn't think. So we're talking about Hudson Hawk because nobody likes this movie but me and the people I show it to, because this movie is perfect, actually. Okay. And I will die on that hill.
All right. I watched it for the first time last night, and you know what? I'm not the biggest Bruce Willis fan, but I will concede the fact that Bruce Willis is good in what he's good at. Bruce Willis is pretty good as an action star, and even when he works in something like The Fifth Element, where he plays the straight man, and he's just surrounded by Looney Tunes characters, and it just works so well. However, when you put Bruce Willis and Danny Aiello as your Looney Tunes characters with people that are just as nuts as, I don't know, this was tonally making my face split open, because it was like a they were going for like a Zucker Brothers style slapstick surreal comedy, where it was like trying to go for that Airplane, Naked Gun type style of comedy, but then it also had just like straight up rated R action movie stuff in it too. So it was always like the jokes were always funny until Daddy was slapping Mommy at the dinner table, but that happened in almost every single joke. So that's where it didn't work for me. But let's go back to the beginning as we do. Let's talk about Michael Lemmon. And this is the director that he kind of had it both ways. He directed box office hits like Meet the Applegates and 40 Days and 40 Nights. It's nothing to brag about, but they both made a ton of money. But he also directed cult classics like Heathers and Airheads. And this was, I think, 2 years after Heathers. So I don't know. It was just talk about a filmmaker that doesn't have really cinematic language that translates throughout, because all of his movies just feel like they're all over the place.
I don't think this movie is as all over the place as you think.
Okay.
Like it's a little more Coen Brothers than you think. Like if you look at something like Raising Arizona, you know, that he's no more a cartoon character than H.I. McCullough was in Raising Arizona. Was that his last name, McCullough, or did I make that up? Anyway,
you know how much I loved that film.
Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, and you didn't like Raising Arizona, so that's probably where the disconnect is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying Michael Lehman makes Coen Brothers movies. What I am suggesting is that Bruce Willis was more of a straight man than you think, but the stuff that happened to him was wacky, and he was making wisecracks. So you're like, the straight man doesn't make wisecracks. But he was in a like Burn After Reading situation, or like The Big Lebowski, where he's just sort of like, I just want everyone to leave me alone. The guy wanted a coffee and he pulled 17 heists. He didn't want to pull 17 heists. He wanted a coffee. That's the kind of Coen Brothers shit where like you're the dude who's just like, I just want to drink a White Russian and get my rug replaced, and everything everyone is doing around him is nuts. So like Aiello was sort of like, all right, I will back your play. You know, you have to pull these heists or you'll go back to jail, and you don't want that. So I'll be your sidekick. But he wasn't really a cartoon character either. If you think about them as the two straight characters, everybody, even Andy McDowell's like spy nun character was cartoonish.
Yeah.
But if you really, even though the shit that happened to Bruce Willis was crazy and his zingers were funny, he was still pretty much a straight man, despite being the most experienced comedic actor in the movie. And I think that threw people a little bit too.
See, I would agree with you if he didn't have those Leslie Nielsen, not type spots, but like kind of pretender spots where he would be doing just like normal stuff, but then when he's like hanging out of the back of the ambulance, he's like just firing off these zingers, and I'm just like, God damn it, like stop it.
Pistol. This is a brand new tuxedo.
Like he shoves a face full of syringes into one of the Goonies' face, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then he gets like kicked out, and he's like holding on by the thing. But then, like I said,
how's my drive-in? Call 1-800. I'm gonna fucking die. Yeah.
And then he throws change into the thing.
Exact change. It had to be exact change. Yeah, they were great gags, and you know it. See, you're laughing. You're like, that was... I don't appreciate this movie not respecting my intelligence, but like you're laughing at the shit because it was dumb. People, I guess, heard Bruce Willis was going to be in an action movie, and they're like, well, it better not be really fucking stupid. And this movie is really profoundly fucking stupid.
Yes.
This is the stupidest movie. But if you like movies that are stupid and think that movies that are very stupid are funny, all of a sudden, I think just some people can't watch a fucking stupid movie and have a good time. Like Roger Ebert's like, this movie, blah, blah. Like you want to read Roger Ebert's reviews of movies like Freddy Got Fingered, and he's like, this wasn't necessary. It's like, okay, it's not for you.
But I laughed during Freddy Got Fingered.
Because Freddy Got Fingered was funny, and you were 15.
Right? Yeah. But I laughed at all the airplane movie, all the Zucker Brothers stuff, like that kind of thing, like Kentucky Fried Movie. It tickles me. Like, so this should have worked. It's just that the jokes are just landed so bluntly and so off tone that I never knew. Like, even the fucking score was weird. Like the score would
Michael Kamen.
I know,
from the San Francisco Philharmonic Orchestra. Michael Kamen didn't blow your skirt up.
But this is what I'm saying. The late great Michael Kamen had, like, during the scenes of when he's like staking out I don't know, one of the artifacts. Like he's basically Indiana Jones, and he's just like looking at it. Then
He's the
scene,
Pink Panther.
sure, the scene it's this like really tension filled, like, you know, and then like something like the shit hits the fan, and it's like dun 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 dun, and then it's like funny music again. I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to be feeling?
Okay, so I guess to tell people kind of the premise of this film.
Please.
Bruce Willis plays a guy called the Hudson Hawk. He was a cat burglar, and he got caught. And he was put in prison, and when he gets out, his parole officer tells him that he has to pull some jobs, otherwise he will send him right back to prison. And he doesn't want to go back to prison. He wants to drink a cappuccino. So... So he's forced to steal all these artifacts because there is a rumor that Leonardo da Vinci figured out a way to turn lead into gold.
Right.
He was trying to turn lead into brass because they needed it for the war effort, and he messed up and accidentally figured out how to transmute lead into gold, and he was horrified by this discovery, and instead of smashing, like burning all his plans and everything, he hid pieces of this gem that would refract sunlight into the tub of lead and turn it into gold. He broke the gem up into pieces and hid all the pieces in different artifacts of his, and they were scattered over museums, so they had to go over the whole planet stealing these pieces of the gem to reassemble it and then build his thing. And Richard Grant and Sandra Bernhardt play these, basically the antagonists of the film. They're these evil dicks who want to turn lead into gold and crash the world's economy for fun.
Yeah, maybe lovers, maybe brother and sister, probably both. Very Lannister.
Could be both.
Yeah.
Could be both. So they're the ones that put him up to it. And Andy McDowell plays a nun who is aware of the plot, and so she's trying to stop them, and she gets sucked up into the whole thing and becomes the love interest for Hudson Hawk without meaning to. Danny Aiello plays his former sidekick on heists, and they opened a bar together, and the bar's doing really well, and since he was inside.
Don't forget the Candy Bar Gang.
Oh yeah, the Candy Bar Gang. They're this CIA gang, and the CIA is trying to interfere too. So everyone's trying to either get their hands on the gem or stop him or force him to do this. And he feels like he is completely powerless, but he, pulls all these heists in like Looney Tunes, Pink Panther fashion. He doesn't have expensive equipment. He just uses common household stuff to pull these heists. He doesn't use a stopwatch to time out his robberies. He's like, oh, this will take about this much time to open the safe and this much time to do this, blah, blah, blah. What old show tunes can we sing that take that exact amount of time so we know exactly how much time we have left in the robbery? So as they're pulling these heists, they're singing like Swinging on a Star or Side by Side or something like that. And like, that's goofy and
Wildly,
really
too,
stupid. Yeah. It's like we're trying not to get caught.
Sing a show tune.
Yeah, and that's stupid, but it's also amazing. And like, if you don't like that, like, what do you like? That's what I want to like. If you didn't like this movie, what the fuck do you like?
I'll tell you what I did like. I liked Richard E. Grant and Sandra Bernhardt. It was just it made me feel weird seeing Sandra Bernhardt for some reason. She's such a strange character. Like,
she's the worst looking sexy person.
Exactly.
Right?
You can't stop looking at her mouth, but you're kind of half grotesque and half chubby too. So it's like what is happening?
Yeah. She's so funny.
Yeah. Like,
I think people who weren't like alive at the time, who weren't like watching some of the stuff she was generating in the early 90s, like when she was at her peak, she's so goddamn funny.
Right.
And she has a very specific look, and she's just like, this is my look. And she just steered into it. And
right.
Yeah, she steals every scene she's in. And Richard E. Grant doesn't do a ton of comedy. So
this was a with Nail and I level performance. And I'm like, his performance was too good for this movie.
And yet It wasn't.
Yeah.
Because he needed to elevate it.
He was
to show how ridiculous the rest of the movie was.
Yeah,
David Caruso's in this movie, so
no, they did not skimp on the cast. I mean, everyone is in this fucking. James Coburn is in this film.
James Coburn is in this movie. He's so good.
He's great in it. It's just like the parts kind of worked, but then when you put it all together in this, like the editing was so horrible. It didn't
work for you.
No, listen, it had like zero cadence to it. Like I didn't know. Like when you were just doing synopsis, I found out more about the movie than when I actually watched the movie, because at no point did I even know that he owned a bar, or that, you know, Danny Aiello had this history. I mean, obviously you could tell they had a history, but I didn't know. It was very vague.
Did you watch the movie?
Well, no,
they like
it's so choppy.
This is all dialogue.
It's just like here's a thing that we're doing. Here's a set piece, and then we're just gonna like bumble it a little bit. We're gonna blow it up, and then now you're in Italy, or now you're in someone's car, and like right when you get your bearings, you're like, okay, we're setting up for a joke, or we're setting up for just some kind of, you know, exposition of what this fucking movie's even about. You're whisked away into something else, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on ever. It was confounding.
Look, man, don't blame the movie for your inability to keep up.
I guess, man. I don't know. I mean, another thing is like everyone is an asshole in this film. It's hard to root for anybody. So I found myself rooting for the most asshole-ish people, like James Coburn. He was just a great, like, mustache twirling villain. And then, of course, like we said, you know, Bernhard and Richard E. Grant, the people that are just like batshit nuts. Like you had this weird butler, this like Alfred type butler with cool Assassin's Creed knives, like that. It had some cool ideas to it, but just the spaghetti, it just wasn't fully cooked or something. And this was something that he co-wrote and co-composed, Bruce Willis. So, I mean, kudos to that, because this is pretty early on in his career.
It satirized James Bond and like heist movies, because heist movies are profoundly fucking stupid. Right. And it took everyone until like now, you know, to realize that. And like Dan Harmon had to say that heist movies sucked, and everyone to go, oh yeah, they're all stupid.
Like it was their original idea. Oh, you know what? It sucks. It's heist movies.
Back in '91, it was like the Pink Panther movies are dumb, and that these were basically a parody of Pink Panther, but it like roped in a bunch of other stuff to shit on too, you know. And I think anytime something satirizes something before everyone's sick of it. Because didn't we just talk Mystery Men, which was a movie that satirized superhero movies like 20 years too early.
Before anyone cared, yeah.
Yeah, this talked about how dumb heist movies are, and like they made a dumb movie to show the heist movies are dumb, and like people weren't ready to hear that. And maybe you're still not.
I've always hated heist movies anyway, so this was for me. And
so you're like, oh, this is a heist movie. I don't like it.
Why is he making me watch a heist movie?
It took itself too seriously to show how dumb it is when these movies take themselves so seriously. And I think the fact that it tried to take itself too seriously to go over the top meant some people didn't realize. They just thought it was like a comedy that took itself too seriously, and they didn't get what it was going for.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It got me going. Because it kept changing, it kept flip-flopping back and forth. And like, okay, so we're doing kind of a more serious scene when, you know, they give the tranquilizers to the two main characters, and it's like, oh shit, this is kind of tension building, whatever, blah blah blah. And then it goes literally Wile E. Coyote, and a guy gets a bomb stuck on his face, and I'm like,
yes.
What the fuck?
Exactly. Like having stupid gags in like what seems like a serious movie, I think really gave too many people whiplash. Like, I understand why nobody but me likes this movie. But like my friends and I would watch this a lot.
Okay.
When I was growing up, like it was in our rotation. We watched a lot of Office Space. We watched a lot of Big Lebowski, and we watched this more than once. It's it's just one of those movies that, like, I think the more times you watch it, the more you like it, maybe.
Okay.
it grows on you, but like so does lymphoma. So
Right.
maybe that's not like the best way to sell it. But I think you have to watch it a few times to catch a lot of the dialogue. But like when it takes itself super seriously, I feel like I got it, and that's what I liked about it. Like when the CIA guy was like, "Oh, you don't recognize me? Well, that's because the last time you saw me, I was bald and I had a beard and I didn't have a mustache and I had a different nose." I just like lines like that, you know. But I also like the dumb lines, you know.
I get it. I do. It's just like I'm thinking of like a Mel Brooks film, like a Robin Hood Men in Tights, or even like a Spaceballs, and it does these type of like surreal humor, like, you know, shit's going on in the background, and while the main characters are giving exposition, and it's like layered, and it just feels like there's like maximum effort to pull off this gag. This is just like Bruce Willis is just like, yeah, this dog licked my balls and I almost finished, and then he stopped, and that was the joke. And I'm like, okay, it just felt more America as far as the jokes went. And like, if you're gonna do a super gaggy film like this, like a Zucker Brothers, I just feel like it needs to have a little bit more, a little bit more nuance, a little bit more layering. This just felt like it was written in 10 minutes on an elevator.
No, this was Bruce Willis's sense of humor. This whole movie is Bruce Willis's exact sense of humor. Right. And if you never bought Bruce Willis as a comedian, then this isn't going to work for you. But like, if you are about that aesthetic, I feel like this executed perfectly. Yeah. And there were a lot of he like fought with the director a lot on this, and he like he meddled so much he got a writing credit. You know. So part of the reason this movie is a mess is because it was like fucked with while they were making it. Bruce Willis is a real diva, you know. Yeah. But Bruce Willis worked with a lot of shitty directors. You know, like you hear Kevin Smith talk about it like he's not the villain in that story. Like when Kevin Smith talks about the set of Cop Out, all the times that Bruce Willis got like upset with him, it's like, no, it's because you're totally unprofessional and you fucking suck as a director, and he had to tombstone the movie out of your hands to get it made. Yeah. Like Bruce Willis is one of those guys. He's like, I've made so many movies, this is boring. I'm sleepwalking through it, and then all of a sudden the director's totally fucking incompetent, so I guess I got to get a writing and co-directing credit on this movie just to get it made now. Like, he's just had all the easiest career of just like these dumb easy roles, and then every once in a while he's like, well, I guess I gotta do this whole movie, you know. So like, yeah, Bruce Willis is probably a pain in the director's ass, and he probably meddled, and probably some of what feels disjointed about it was because, you know, it was changed up a lot on the fly. But I don't feel like comedies need to worry too much about hanging together as a movie always. Okay. So the fact that this tried to but didn't quite make it there doesn't matter to me. Like, I wouldn't give a drama the kind of latitude, but like, this did a better job stringing together the jokes than some comedies, if that makes sense. Like, it tried so hard to be an over serious movie that like it was a better vehicle for the jokes than like either a comedy where they didn't develop the plot much, or a movie that took itself what it thought was the right amount of serious. Okay. Like, I realize I'm apologizing for this movie a lot, but like, it just works for me, and it's not going to work for everybody, but it works for me.
I'm not saying that it's devoid of any chuckles, because I actually laughed my ass off with the whole dog scene where he shoots the tennis ball and it just jettisons the dog out of the window completely.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah, well, there you go.
Bunny, ball.
Bunny? Ball.
If you haven't seen it, it's, 1991. We gave you plenty of time to go check out Hudson Hawk. So
they made a Nintendo game out of this movie,
which I remember playing. I remember more about
it. Was a very profoundly bad game.
It was like Pitfall, but horrible, right?
That's probably why you don't like this, yeah, because of the Nintendo game was so bad.
That's it, yeah. Super Mario, I just remember how great the game was, so I'm like, yeah, the movie's shitty, but it's Super Mario, I gotta like
But
it.
this wasn't Super Mario. It was Caesar Mario, played by Frank Stallone.
Oh, did it? Oh, man. What would you recommend this for now? Would you recommend this to anyone
I thought you'd like it. I thought
yeah.
you'd like it.
Yeah.
I'm a little thrown that you didn't, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I think if you like really stupid movies, if you like Super Troopers, Freddy Got Fingered, that kind of shit, you should have seen this movie when you were 15 because you'd like it a lot more now. But I think if you kind of don't like it when heist movies, which are inherently ridiculous, like people pulling off rubber masks or being like, "Oh, you were part of the heist the whole time and didn't know it. The only way to get the diamond ring out of the vault was for you to grab it, thinking we were trying to steal it, and you going to thwart our robbery was part of the plan." Like that kind of stupid shit. Like if you're sick of that kind of movie, this 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit on that kind of movie. If you thought Andy McDowell was super hot 30 years ago, this is great.
And if you had a weird specific fetish of her in a nun costume, this is your shit.
There's one scene of that. I think this movie, it's...
Don't let me talk you out of it. I mean...
No, it's funny on a couple axes, I think. Because, like, the jokes are funny to me, but also the absurdity of the movie taking too seriously is funny. So I think really everyone should just watch this, and, like, 75% of you are going to hate it, and then 25% of you are like, I'm going to watch this every year. I really feel like you will either love this movie or hate it. Mm-hmm. Nobody's lukewarm on this movie.
Right.
So I really feel like just everybody should see it, so we can just find enough people that are like, yeah, I get it. Or you don't even have to get it. There's not much to get. It's a dumb movie, but like, It worked for me.
It's I would recommend it for someone that's just seen Monty Python too much or something. You want that something else. It feels like the black sheep in that era of comedy, like a Holy Grail, Men in Tights, Spaceballs, all that stuff. This feels like it belongs in that crowd, but it just feels like it's the kid wearing, pink, but we don't wear pink on Wednesday, so you can't sit with us. It feels like kind of a half measure of those films, but still enough there to, just the Richard E. Grant performance and the Sandra Bernhard performance itself is almost enough to warrant it. That man can do the scum of the earth, just like complete drunk, or like super yuppie, almost like Trumpy type role perfectly. He has so much comedic range, and it is a travesty that man just did not do more just comedy in general throughout his career. But yeah, I'm gonna personally say pass on this one, but there is definitely a market for it, and
how dare you?
I'm glad that this is not the first time that this happened on the Cult of Films. Usually this series is like Sure Things, but I have to say this is probably the second time, because So I Married an Axe Murderer, I just couldn't. It was just...
Well, that movie sucks, though.
But it was good when we were young, right? But it does not hold up.
I guess. I don't know. It's good for a Mike Myers movie, but so what? What does that even mean?
You know what? I don't have to love them all.
No, you don't, but like, I really thought you'd like this one, man.
Sorry, Jason.
You're allowed not to like it, but you're wrong, and I hate you.
Yeah, I know. It's fine. We'll mend our relationship after this, after a cold brew.
You know what? You want to make it up to me? Watch this again.
All right. Just because I love you. Can I just watch the Richard E. Grant parts?
You can just watch the whole movie because it's 90 minutes.
Jesus Christ. All right. Well, that is our episode of the Cult of Films on Hudson Hawk. I just legitimately just didn't like this one, but let us know what you think. Am I a complete idiot? Let me know downstairs. Is Jason just completely...
Everyone is going to think I'm a complete idiot.
Where can people tell you that, Jason? That's a good segue to our exit.
If you want to hear more of my controversial opinions that even my co-hosts don't agree with, go to Jason Ealt on Twitter. I've got a pinned post at the top of my profile that links to all the different projects I work on around the internet.
Perfect. I am at John the Host, and you can follow this very show at The Cult of Film, simply out there, all undercase. Go check it out. We'll be uploading this to all your favorite podcasting sites as well, like your Spotify's and iTunes. Leave us Leonardo da Vinci artifacts or cups of Joe. That would be much appreciated. Until next time, do we have a Hudson Hawk out, Jason?
How was this episode? Call 1-800, we're gonna fucking die.
We'll see you next time.
Oh!